Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's going to be reviewing the Aston Martin SUV. This is a DBX 707, so it's got some pretty crazy power and lots of leather, lots and lots of leather. Before we get into this video, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the Mercedes here in Salt Lake for me some time with us, Aston Martin. I'll include a link to their website in the description down below. If you have any questions, need any help, just ask for Dylan. Also include a link to my car buying guide. Let's get into it. On the passenger side, now under the hood is a Mercedes V8, so it's a twin-turbo 4-liter V8, goes through a 9-speed automatic, and it puts out 697 horsepower and then 664 pound-feet of torque. The 707 is with the British horsepower. That's what we'll call it in today's review, but still crazy power outputs. But what's more crazy is how big this hood is. Look at how it extends, like, just look at that. That is probably one of the biggest car hoods ever. Crazy. Oh, and speaking of the hood, of course, you've got venting there at the top. You always got to have venting with these hoods. But let's see how solid this is to close. Pretty solid. I didn't close it all the way either. Now, before we move forward with this review, I do want to mention if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Now, taking a look at that hood, the venting's actually really cool here on the outside. Adds a nice aggressive touch. And then taking a look at the headlights, I think those are also really cool looking, distinctly Aston Martin. Same thing there with the badge in the center. And then you actually get these cool turn signals down below. Kind of interesting. But yeah, look how open this front end is. Pretty crazy looking. Kind of reminds me of a fish. Do you guys see what I'm talking about? Maybe I'm just weird. But it looks good either way. So turning wheel setup is 285 by 35 by 23 in the front, and then 325 by 30 by 23 in the rear. Which is interesting. I feel like all these high-performance SUVs have the same tire and wheel setup. We'll go over that in just a moment. But anyways, blacked out wheels. Pretty cool looking. Aston Martin badge. It's kind of like a classy design. Blacked out brake caliper, so not too crazy. Seeing the bodywork there on the front end here on the side also looks crazy. But the reason I bring up the tire and wheel setup is I just reviewed that Lambo SUV. Over there you can see the bright green one. Same exact setup. 285 by 35 by 23 and then 325 by 30 by 23. So it's like they're all copying each other. Anyways, back to the Aston Martin. You've got this trim piece that's blacked out that goes along there. This is cool. Comes down here at the bodywork. All blacked out there at the bottom. Got these cool pop-out door handles as well, which gives it a very sleek appearance. I actually really like this in terms of the design. Like, look at that. It is quite beautiful, if I do say so myself. Now this leads us to the key fob, which this key fob is actually pretty fancy looking. I think it might be a modified Mercedes key fob. Kind of looks like it, which, yeah, I'm not going to complain. I think it's actually pretty cool looking overall. Anyways, hold this down. That'll pop open the hatch, which has more fancy. So, stitching on cargo covers. I guess that's the thing to do with these high-end luxury cars. That's also very interesting for me to see. But it's a nice thing that, you know, as you use it, it's going to feel more premium. And this is interesting here with the seats to adjust them from the rear. Obviously, that'll help out with cargo. And then you can also raise and lower the car itself. So it's another nice feature to have. This is nice with the trim that goes across. Look at this fancy, I don't know, it's not a bag. It's like a, when you get the rubber mat below it, I guess this is where you put stuff on, but it's like this really nice leather. I guess if you're a rich person, you'll understand. I don't understand. But anyways. Ah, yeah, straight out of Mercedes. Look at that. I noticed the switch gear. Anyways, taillight design is absolutely beautiful. I think that's really cool looking. And then you can see like the swoop up. Aston Martin down below. Look how crazy these exhaust tips are. I'll get you guys an exhaust clip at the end. And then look at the spoiler. That is interesting. I will say though, the design on this, I just reviewed that Urus. This looks a lot prettier than the Urus. It's, yeah, a lot better with what they've done with all the body lines. And then this leads us into the rear, so you can see the pop-out door handle. And then it's frameless with the windows, by the way, which is interesting. And then Aston Martin has these cool doors that just stay pretty much wherever you put them because they've got a strut. So it's nice. Look at the stitching. Really nice. And by the way, everything's covered in leather. Like even here at the bottom, got the stitching there. Carbon fiber trim at the bottom too. I like the little door handle. And then you can see Aston Martin there. Kind of reminds me of like a Maserati interior actually, with the leather and everything. Very similar. Comparing this to a bunch of other cars, but I'm just kind of noting for myself because I don't review a lot of Aston Martins. A little storage there. Carbon fiber on the back of the seat. It's kind of crazy. And you guys can see here in the back, looks like we got adjustments for climate, and then door lock and unlock. You got some vents there as well. And headroom's actually pretty good back here. I wasn't expecting that because of the design. It's not bad, and these seats are very comfortable as well. And then this is nice with the headliners, leather. And look at these grab handles. Doesn't like look super sturdy, but looks fancy. So I guess that's. I think even the lights, look at that. Crazy. Now this leads us up front, and again we've got the push-out door handle. It's kind of hard to do with one, or my right hand rather. Anyways, you can see here with the stitching that goes across. Pretty cool with the mirrors. Oh, by the way, these doors do the same thing where you can just keep them wherever you want, pretty much. Oh, actually, no. Interesting. And also, look at the door while it's up. It tilts up a little bit, so it kind of looks like a wing. It's fascinating. And then you can see all the window controls here, mirror adjustment and all that. And again, another cool little door handle. And then Aston Martin there on the headrest. Perforated all down the center. Million different adjustments there on the side. Wow, that is a lot of adjustability. I'm always interested to see the weight of these luxury SUVs. So 6525, payload 1200. So this weighs 6,300 pounds. It's lighter than the Lamborghini SUV. Pretty nice looking pedals. See the light controls again. That's straight out of a Mercedes. The light stuff, and then you've got nice trim all over the dash, and then cool little vent design there. So here's a look at the steering wheel. Really nice leather trim all around. You get these giant column mounted paddles there on the back, and then on the front get a bunch of practical controls, including stuff like adaptive cruise control. You've got your volume controls as well, and are those actually carbon fiber? Yeah, it looks like the paddle's got some carbon fiber. That's pretty cool. And then you have stalks behind it to control stuff like you can see in the very back, the heated steering wheel, but it's kind of hard to get to because the paddles, I mean, look at this. That's your driver POV. So kind of interesting with that to note. Now here's a look at the gauge cluster. It is digital, so you can scroll through and see different bits of info. Pretty straightforward use on that. And I mean, overall, I think that it's a pretty cool system. Something that's interesting. The sound when you turn different features on or off. I don't know. I think that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, it functions like most digital gauge clusters in modern cars. Now we do have a 360 camera system. Trajectory lines turn the steering wheel, again borrowed from Mercedes. Not a bad thing. I mean, you've got good visibility throughout. I guess I have to. Interesting. But yeah, pretty cool setup overall. So I think this is, or maybe it's not a touchscreen. Let's see. Oh, I guess it's not. I thought this was going to be a touchscreen, but it's all controlled with the dial. So this is not Mercedes' newest infotainment system, which I guess Mercedes might not want that tech to be in another manufacturer's car, but yeah, basically Mercedes' older UI. I'll show you guys the dial and everything. You'll recognize it right away. Anyways, for the transmission, select here, and then you got like the engine stop start too. I do want to say, you'll notice that there's leather and stitching everywhere. That's one thing. You're like in a cocoon of leather, which is very interesting. And this design here where it just folds over, I wonder, like, that is so fascinating to me. And speaking of fascinating, look at this fancy button. Just to open up the glove box. And you notice that everything's very tactile in this. And then you've got this for like the climate controls down below, heated and cooled seat controls there, door lock and unlock all in the center. Very interesting. And then this is your drive mode select, which, yeah, it pops up here. Is it just me, or does this look like very Maserati-esque? This looks like Mercedes mixed with Maserati stuff in here. That's what it seems like to me. Anyways, you can see for the suspension, stability control as well, a little volume control. And then you have a bunch of buttons here on either side. And it's, you know, random stuff like hazard lights, for example, auto stop start, but then over here, the exhaust to make it louder, suspension to adjust it. And then this is that control stack for the infotainment system with the dial up front. You can see it's straight out of Mercedes. I mean, they did put some nice leather around it to make it more, like, here's a better view, more premium. Look at all the carbon fiber, by the way. And there's actually more storage underneath here, which is pretty cool. So it's practical. And again, even that has, so they make sure like there's no just plastic surfaces, which is, I mean, even this, like that's crazy that they, and even here, look at that. Like everything is covered in leather. That is a very weird thing for me to see. And speaking of stuff covered in leather, look at the sun visor. Even the little tab is premium. Like they took a little, like you can tell it's plastic underneath. You see the corner there. Then they covered that because they're like, no, it's gotta be premium. It's gotta be fancy. But yeah, the whole headliner, see the lights are very premium looking. So they did a really good job. And then you do have a big panoramic center, and the shade has a nice trim, so it's not just like the scratchy cloth like a lot of manufacturers will do. So yeah, I do like this interior quite a bit. When it comes to pricing, I think the original MSRP in this was like something like $300,000. This has 20,000 miles on it, and it's going for mid 150, or what is it? I think it's like mid 160s roughly. So it's lost like half of its value in 2 years and 20,000 miles roughly. Somewhere around that. That's luxury car depreciation for you. So to cap things off with this review, I think that the Aston Martin SUV looks really cool on the outside. The interior is very premium, and this is obviously a very small company, right? And so it's interesting to see what they've done to put this all together, right? Getting help from Mercedes, and again, having a lot of bits that are very reminiscent of what you see in Maserati. I don't know why again, the seats and everything, and it's just material use is very similar, and some of the UI looks very similar, even the drive modes. But the animations, it's very weird to see. But it was cool because I reviewed this, and then I also reviewed that little Lambo, I shouldn't say little, weighs over 5,000 pounds, but the Lambo SUV. And it's interesting to see, like, that is a mainstream manufacturer, right? Because that is, Lamborghini's owned by Audi, or the Volkswagen Group rather, and so it's like, that car is so much different than this car. Like, you can tell that this is way more like handmade, way more unique, if that makes sense, versus the Lambo SUV. It's very premium feeling and looking and all of that, but it looks more matte, like it literally is just like a reskinned Audi with some Lambo parts on it. Whereas this, I mean, obviously it had some Mercedes switchgear and everything, but it's also got a lot of unique parts on it. So it's interesting to see in this segment how things are kind of different. But yeah, definitely more bespoke. But let me know what you guys think about the Aston Martin SUV.